The stars looked different now. Admiral Kang Wu stood on the bridge of his massive ship, the Defiant Dawn, and watched the galaxy that his people once called home. 300 years had passed since humans left this place. 300 long years of floating in the dark space between galaxies, fighting to stay alive. Kang Wu was not the same man who had left. None of them were. His great-great-grandfather had been the one to make the hard choice to flee. Now Kang Wu was bringing them back. His hair was gray, his face marked by years of hard decisions, but his eyes still burned with the fire that kept humanity alive in the void. "Sir, we are getting close to the border," said Captain Li Jin from his station. Li Jin was young for a captain, only 40 years old. He had grown up on the ships, never seeing a planet until today. His fingers moved quickly over the controls of his scout ship, the Ghostwalker. "Any signs of life?" Kang Wu asked. "Yes, sir, lots of it. The old human worlds are full of activity, but it's not human activity." Kang Wu nodded. They had expected this. When humans left, someone else would take their place. The question was who and how they would react to humanity's return. Dr. Park Yuna looked up from her workstation. She was the fleet's top expert on alien life. Her job was to study other species and understand how they thought. She had been listening to alien radio signals for weeks as they got closer to home. "Admiral," she said, "I have been listening to their talks. They call this area the hegemony now. They have taken over all our old worlds. What do they say about us?" Kang Wu asked. Park Yuna's face was grim. "They remember us, but not the way we were. They think we were weak. They think we ran away because we were scared of their technology." Kang Wu almost laughed. Scared of their technology? If only they knew what humans had built in the void. If only they knew what 300 years of fighting for survival had made them become. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Around them, 50,000 human ships moved through space like a school of fish. Each ship carried families, soldiers, workers, and scientists. Each ship was a piece of humanity that had been forged in the darkness between stars. "Sir," Li Jin called out, "I'm picking up a patrol. 3 alien ships moving toward our position." "Let them come," Kang Wu said. "It's time they knew we were here." On the alien command ship, High Commander Thexavar felt his scales itch. This always happened when he was nervous. The reptilian commander had been watching the border for 20 years. Nothing ever happened here. The old human space was quiet and safe. "Commander," his aide said, "we have strange readings on long-range sensors." "What kind of readings?" "Unknown ships, sir. Many of them. They're coming from the void." Thexvar's blood went cold. Nothing lived in the void. Nothing could survive out there. His people had been to the edge of the galaxy. There was nothing but empty space and death. "How many ships?" he asked. "We're not sure, sir. At least 50,000, maybe more, 50,000 ships. That was more than most entire species had. Who could have built such a fleet? And why were they coming from the void?" "Send a message to Fleet Command," Thexvar ordered. "Tell them we may have a problem." Back on the Ghostwalker, Li Jin smiled as he prepared to send humanity's first message in 300 years. It would be simple. No threats, no demands. Just a statement of fact. He opened all radio channels and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Li Jin of the human vessel Ghostwalker. We have returned." The message spread across space at light speed. Within hours, it reached every major alien world. Panic followed close behind. On the hegemony capital world, emergency meetings started right away. Humans, impossible. They had run away centuries ago. They were weak, primitive creatures who couldn't handle real space warfare. But the sensor readings didn't lie. 50,000 ships had appeared from nowhere. They were big ships too, bigger than anything the hegemony had seen before. Dr. Park Yuna worked through the night listening to alien communications. What she heard made her both angry and sad. The aliens talked about humans like they were pets that had run away. They laughed about the weak Earth people who couldn't handle the galaxy. "They have no idea," she told Kang Wu. "They think we're the same people who left. They think we've been hiding in some corner of space, too scared to come back." Kang Wu looked out at the stars again. Soon the aliens would learn the truth. Soon they would understand what 300 years in hell had done to humanity. They would learn that humans didn't run from fights anymore. They had learned to win them. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "Tell them to prepare for contact. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what we've become." As the order went out, 50,000 human ships began to change. Weapons powered up, shields activated, advanced systems that no alien had ever seen came online. The void had been humanity's teacher. It had shown them how to survive when everything wanted them dead. It had taught them to be stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than they had ever been before. Now class was over. It was time for the final exam. In the depths of space, automated systems that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Hidden manufacturing platforms started their engines. Signals went out to distant parts of the galaxy, calling home ships that had been exploring for centuries. The 50,000 ships were just the beginning. Admiral Kang Wu smiled for the first time in years. Let the aliens think humans were weak. Let them remember the frightened people who had fled so long ago. Soon they would meet the people those frightened refugees had become. Soon they would understand that humanity's greatest defeat had become their greatest strength. The long exile was over. Humanity had come home. Commander Kim Dae felt sick as he looked at what used to be New Seoul. The planet had been humanity's second home, a beautiful world with green forests and blue oceans. Now it was covered with alien buildings that looked like giant insects made of metal and glass. Kim Dae commanded the advanced scout team. His job was to visit the old human worlds and see what had happened to them. What he found made his heart hurt and his blood boil. "Sir," said Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "I'm reading massive changes to the planet's surface." "The cities are completely different," Kim Dae nodded. Through his ship's windows, he could see the alien structures. They had built their cities right on top of human ones. Human parks had been turned into landing pads. Human schools had become alien factories. "Take us down to the old capital," he ordered. "I want to see it up close." As they landed, Kim Dae's team put on their environmental suits. The air was different now, changed to suit alien lungs instead of human ones. They walked through streets that should have been familiar but felt like walking through a graveyard. The worst part was the memorials. Human statues had been knocked down and replaced with alien ones. Human writing had been painted over with alien symbols. It was like they were trying to erase any proof that humans had ever lived here. "Commander," called Sergeant Yoon from across the square. "You need to see this." Kim Dae walked over to where Yoon was standing. In front of them was a large building that used to be a human museum. Now it was some kind of alien center, but what caught Kim Dae's attention was a small plaque near the entrance. The plaque was written in alien script, but his translator could read it. It said, "This building was taken from the primitive Earth species after their cowardly retreat. It now serves the greater good of the hegemony. Primitive. Cowardly." The words burned in Kim Dae's mind. "Sir," Yoon said quietly, "there's more. The building plans show underground areas that weren't in the original human design. They found a way into the underground levels. What they discovered there made Kim Dae's hands shake with rage. The underground areas were burial sites, mass graves filled with human bones, thousands of them." Dr. Park Yuna's voice came through the radio from orbit. "Commander, I'm reading similar sites across the planet. The sensor shows at least 50,000 burial sites. 50,000. That was almost the entire human population of New Seoul. They didn't just take our world," Kim Dae said into his radio. "They killed everyone who stayed behind." Back on the fleet, Colonel Yoon Hana gathered her Marines in the main briefing room. Hana had been born in space, but her grandmother had told her stories about Earth and the colony worlds. Now she had to tell her soldiers what had really happened to their people. "Listen carefully," she said to the room full of warriors. "We always thought our ancestors left to explore new places. We thought they were looking for adventure in the void. That was a lie." The room was silent. Marines who had fought void creatures and space pirates without fear now looked afraid of what they might hear. "Our people didn't leave," Hana continued. "They were forced out. The aliens made them choose, leave everything behind or die. Many chose to stay and fight. Those people are buried in mass graves on every world we once called home." A young Marine raised his hand. "Ma'am, why did they do this?" "Because they were afraid of us," Hana said. "Because they knew that if humans were allowed to stay, we would become too strong for them to control." On another ship, Chief Engineer Nam Soo was studying data recovered from the old human settlements. Nam Soo was a genius with technology. He could make broken machines, work and could understand alien technology just by looking at it. What he found in the old data cores made him very interested and very angry. "Admiral," he said over the communication system to Kang Wu. "I found something important. The aliens have been lying about why they forced us to leave." "Explain," Kang Wu's voice came back. "The records show that human technology was advancing very fast 300 years ago. We had developed new engines, new weapons, new ways to travel through space. The aliens were starting to fall behind." Nam Su pulled up charts and graphs on his screen. "Look at this. Human ships were becoming faster than alien ships. Human computers were becoming smarter than alien computers. In maybe 50 more years, humans would have been the strongest species in the galaxy. So they decided to stop us," Kang Wu said. "Yes, sir. They created false evidence that humans were planning to attack them. They convinced other species that humans were dangerous. Then they gave our people a choice: leave or be destroyed by the combined alien fleets." This explained so much. It explained why the human exodus had been so sudden. It explained why even peaceful human colonies had been abandoned overnight. The leaders of humanity had seen what was coming and made the hard choice to save their people by running away. Captain Chang Bin was having his own discoveries on the stealth ship Shadow's Edge. Chang Bin was a spy, trained to sneak into enemy territory and steal information. He had broken into an alien research station near the old human world of New Tokyo. What he found there shocked him. The aliens had kept everything. Every piece of human technology that had been left behind was stored in massive warehouses. Alien scientists had been studying human designs for 300 years, trying to figure out how they worked. "They've been using our technology this whole time," Chang Bin reported to the fleet. "They're faster engines, based on human designs. They're better computers, copied from human systems. Even their weapons are improved versions of things humans built centuries ago. But the aliens had only been able to copy, not truly understand." Chang Bin looked at their research notes and saw confusion and frustration. The alien scientists knew that human technology worked, but they couldn't figure out why it worked. Meanwhile, humans had spent 300 years in the void, learning to build things the aliens couldn't even imagine. Admiral Kang Wu sat in his private office, reading report after report. Each one told the same story. Humanity had been betrayed, exiled, and their people murdered. But the betrayers had grown weak and lazy, while the exiled had grown strong and smart. "Admiral," came Dr. Park Yuna's voice over the intercom, "I have the full picture now. The hegemony has become everything they accused us of being. They rule through fear and violence. They crush any species that shows signs of becoming too advanced. They've done to others what they did to us." Kang Wu stood up and walked to his window. Outside, 50,000 human ships moved through space like a deadly dance. But these ships were just the visible part of humanity's return. Hidden throughout the void were automated factories that had been building for centuries, manufacturing platforms that could create 1,000 ships a day, weapons that could tear holes in space itself. The aliens thought they were facing the same weak humans who had run away long ago. They had no idea what 300 years of survival in the void had created. "Send a message to all ship commanders," Kang Wu ordered. "Tell them it's time to show the galaxy who we really are. Tell them it's time to collect what's owed to our dead." The ghosts of humanity's past were about to become the nightmares of the alien present. The Hegemony Senate building was in chaos. Senators from dozens of alien species shouted at each other in languages that sounded like growls, clicks, and musical notes. They had ruled the galaxy for 300 years without any real challenges. Now humans had returned and nobody knew what to do about it. Senator Vectel stood up. He was a large alien with 4 arms and skin like green leather. His species had been one of the first to join the attack on humanity centuries ago. Now he was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "This is simple," Vectel said in his deep voice. "We have 1,000,000 ships. They have 50,000. We destroy them now before they can cause trouble." Other senators nodded in agreement. They remembered humans as weak creatures who ran away when things got hard. How dangerous could they be? But Admiral Omina was listening to their discussions from her command ship, hidden just outside the solar system. Mina was in charge of humanity's intelligence operations. Her job was to know what the enemy was thinking before they thought it. She smiled as she heard Vectal's confident words. The aliens had no idea what they were really facing. "Send the signal," she ordered her communications officer. Across the galaxy, sleeping machines began to wake up. For 300 years, Automated manufacturing platforms had been drifting in the void between stars. They had been building ships, weapons, and tools while waiting for the signal to activate. Now that signal had come. In the empty space between solar systems, massive factories came to life. Robot workers that had been in sleep mode for decades began moving. Assembly lines started running. In the depths of space, humanity's true fleet began to reveal itself. Lieutenant Commander Basion was about to give the aliens their first real surprise. Basion commanded the destroyer Void Hunter, a ship that looked small and harmless compared to the massive alien battle cruisers. He had been ordered to demonstrate human capabilities to an alien patrol that was getting too close to the main fleet. The patrol consisted of 12 heavy alien warships, each one 3 times the size of Basion's destroyer. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "the alien ships are demanding we surrender and prepare to be boarded." "Signal them back," Basion said calmly. "Tell them we decline their offer." The alien patrol leader probably thought this was funny. 12 ships against 1, and the humans were refusing to surrender. These Earth creatures really were as stupid as the old report said. The alien ships opened fire first. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space, all aimed at Basion's small ship. Any normal vessel would have been destroyed instantly, but the Void Hunter simply wasn't there anymore. The ship had shifted slightly out of normal space-time, existing in a dimension where the alien weapons couldn't touch it. To the aliens, it looked like their target had become a ghost. "Now," Basion said quietly. The Void Hunter fired a single pulse of energy. It wasn't a beam or a missile. It was something that bent space itself, creating a gravity wave that passed through the alien ships like water through a net. The alien weapons stopped working. Their engines shut down. Their life support systems failed. In 30 seconds, 12 of the most advanced warships in the hegemony fleet had become floating metal coffins. But Basion wasn't finished. A second pulse from his ship repaired all the damage and brought the alien ships back to full power. The alien crews found themselves alive and unharmed but completely helpless. "Send them a message," Basion ordered. "Tell them this was a demonstration. Next time we might not be so gentle." The news of what happened to the patrol spread quickly through the hegemony fleet. 12 ships disabled by 1. Weapons that could turn matter into energy and energy back into matter. Technology that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. The aliens began to realize they might have made a mistake. Meanwhile, Ambassador Quindar was preparing for the most important meeting of his career. Quindar was a diplomat from a species that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. His job was to talk to dangerous enemies and convince them not to start wars. He had been chosen to meet with the human leader and try to work out a peaceful solution. The Hegemony Senate figured that since his people looked almost human, the Earth creatures might trust him more. Quindar was very wrong about this. When his shuttle docked with the Defiant Dawn, he expected to be taken to a simple meeting room. Instead, he was escorted through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. The human ship was far larger inside than it appeared from outside. The walls were covered with displays showing star maps that made Quindar dizzy just looking at them. Admiral Kang Wu was waiting for him in a conference room that overlooked a vast space filled with activity. Through the massive windows, Quindar could see thousands of humans working on projects he couldn't understand. Machines the size of buildings were building other machines. Workers in spacesuits were moving objects that seemed to glow with their own light. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador," Kang Wu said politely. "Please sit down." Quindar sat, trying not to show how nervous he was. Kang Wu looked like an ordinary human, but there was something different about him. His eyes were too bright, too focused. His movements were too smooth and precise. "I hope we can resolve this situation peacefully," Quindar began. "The hegemony is willing to discuss—" "Look out the window," Kang Wu interrupted. Quindar looked. The displays on the walls had changed to show a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of red dots were scattered throughout space, far beyond the edges of known civilization. "Each red dot is a human settlement," Kang Wu explained. "We've been busy these past 300 years. Quindar stared at the map. There were more red dots than there were stars in some sectors. Humans hadn't just survived in the void. They had built an empire larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Impossible," Quindar whispered. Dr. Park Yuna entered the room carrying a small device. She placed it on the table and activated it. Suddenly, the air filled with images and sounds from across the galaxy. Alien worlds, alien species, alien civilizations, all of them working, building, creating. We've been watching, Dr. Park Yuna said simply. We know about the slave worlds. We know about the forced labor camps. We know about the species you've destroyed for getting too smart or too strong. The images showed things that made Quindar feel sick. His own people, working in terrible conditions on factory worlds. Other species being hunted to near extinction for asking too many questions about hegemony rule. You've become exactly what you accused us of being, Kang Wu said. Warlike conquerors who crush anyone who threatens your power. That's not, Quindar started to say, then stopped. Looking at the evidence, he couldn't deny it. The difference is, Kang Wu continued, we've learned from our exile. We've grown stronger not by conquering others, but by conquering ourselves. We've learned to survive in places where survival should be impossible. We've learned to build things that shouldn't exist. Quindar looked around the room again. Now he noticed details he had missed before. The walls weren't made of metal. They were made of some material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid while staying solid. The lights weren't electric. They were small stars contained in transparent spheres. What do you want? Quindar asked quietly. Justice, Kang Wu said. Our worlds returned. Our dead honored. And an end to the cycle of fear and oppression that has poisoned this galaxy for too long. And if we refuse? Kang Wu gestured to the star map. More red dots appeared, millions of them, moving toward the galactic core. Then you'll learn why we survived 300 years in hell while you grew soft and weak in paradise. Quindar left the meeting with a message for the Hegemony Senate. The humans weren't asking for negotiation. They were explaining what was going to happen. The galaxy was about to change, whether the aliens liked it or not. High Admiral Thexvar was done with talking. The reptilian commander had spent 3 days listening to his government argue about what to do with the humans. Meanwhile, human ships were spreading across the galaxy like a disease. It was time for action. Gather the first fleet, he ordered his staff. 100,000 ships. We'll show these humans what real power looks like. The other officers looked nervous. The reports from the patrol that met the human destroyer were confusing and frightening. But Thexvar was confident. 100,000 ships was more firepower than most species had ever seen. Even if human technology was better than expected, numbers had to count for something. Captain Li Jin was watching the alien fleet gather through the sensors of his scout ship. The Ghostwalker was hidden in the asteroid field near the old human world of New Mars, invisible to alien detection systems. Admiral, he reported to Kang Wu, they're bringing everything they have. I count 98,000 ships so far, with more arriving every hour. How many ships are we sending to meet them? Li Jin asked. Kang Wu's answer surprised him. 500. 500 against 100,000. Li Jin had fought impossible odds before, but this seemed crazy even for humans. Sir, are you sure about those numbers? Captain, Kang Wu said with a smile in his voice. You're thinking like our ancestors did. You're still thinking in terms of individual ships fighting individual battles. We don't fight that way anymore. Commander Kim Dae was chosen to lead the human defensive fleet. His 500 ships moved into position between the alien Armada and the main human fleet. To the aliens watching on their sensors, it looked like humans were either very brave or very stupid. Kim Dae had learned many things during humanity's exile in the void. The most important lesson was that individual strength mattered less than group coordination. In the space between galaxies, humans had learned to fight creatures the size of moons. You couldn't defeat such monsters with single ships. You had to become something larger than the sum of your parts. All ships begin the merge, Kim Dae ordered. What happened next made the watching aliens question everything. They thought they knew about space warfare. The 500 human ships began to move toward each other in patterns that looked like a dance. As they got closer, energy fields began to connect them. Light flowed between the vessels like blood through veins. Within minutes, what had been 500 separate ships had become one enormous entity that moved with perfect coordination. The alien fleet opened fire from maximum range. Thousands of energy beams and missile swarms filled space, all aimed at the human formation. It was enough firepower to destroy planets. But the human ships were no longer where the weapons were aimed. The entire formation phased in and out of normal spacetime, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. When the formation did take hits, the damage was absorbed and shared among all ships, making each individual vessel nearly indestructible. Impossible. Thexvar whispered as he watched his weapons have no effect. The human formation began to respond. From what looked like empty space, energy pulses reached out and touched alien ships. Each pulse was perfectly targeted, striking weapon systems, engines, and shields with surgical precision. Commander Kim Day wasn't trying to destroy the alien fleet. He was trying to teach them a lesson. Within an hour, half of the alien ships were floating helplessly in space, their weapons disabled but their crews unharmed. The other half were trying to retreat, but human ships kept appearing around them, herding them like sheep. "This is impossible," Thexvar said again. He had studied human tactics from the old wars. Humans fought with primitive weapons and simple strategies. They couldn't coordinate more than a few dozen ships at once. This was like watching magic. But the real surprise was still coming. Engineer Nam Su activated humanity's greatest achievement, the Void Engine Network. For 300 years, humans had been building a system that connected every human ship in existence through folded space-time. Distance became meaningless. A human ship near Earth could instantly support a battle happening on the other side of the galaxy. Suddenly, Thexvar's sensors began picking up impossible readings. Human ships were appearing from everywhere. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands, then tens of thousands. Ships were materializing from the void between stars, phasing in from parallel dimensions, stepping out of holes in space-time itself. "How many ships do they have?" his aide asked in a terrified whisper. "All of them," Thexvar realized. Every human ship in existence just became part of this battle. Colonel Yoon Hana was leading the marine boarding operations when the Void Engine Network activated. Her assault teams were using teleportation technology to appear inside alien ships, but they weren't there to fight, they were there to talk. "Attention alien crew," Hana announced over the intercom of the alien flagship. "This is Colonel Yoon Hana of the Human Marine Corps. We are here to discuss your surrender." The alien bridge crew stared at the humans who had appeared among them. These weren't the weak Earth creatures from their history books. These humans moved like predators, their eyes bright with intelligence and their bodies enhanced by 3 centuries of genetic adaptation. "Your weapons cannot harm us," Hana continued calmly. "Your shields cannot stop us. Your engines cannot outrun us. But we are not here to hurt you. We are here to offer you a choice." She gestured, and her Marines activated a holographic display that showed the current battle. The alien fleet was completely surrounded by human ships that seemed to multiply every second. "You can continue to fight a war you cannot win," Hana said, "or you can listen to what we have to say about the future of this galaxy." Captain Chang Bin was having similar conversations on a dozen other alien ships. His intelligence teams had been studying alien psychology for years. They knew exactly what to say to make each species understand their situation. "Your government lied to you," Chang Bin told a group of alien officers. "They told you humans were primitive and violent. But look around you. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 5 minutes of this battle. Instead, we disabled your weapons and asked to talk." He activated another display showing the mass graves found on human worlds. "This is what your leaders did to our people. This is the price of their fear and hatred. We're not here for revenge. We're here to make sure it never happens again." Admiral Omina was coordinating the larger strategy from her command ship. Her job was to make sure that every species in the galaxy understood what was happening. Human ships were appearing in every major star system, not to attack but to broadcast a simple message. The message was the true history of what had happened 300 years ago. The forced exile, the mass murders, the theft of human technology, the lies that had been told to justify it all, but the message also showed what humanity had become during their exile. The vast cities built in the void between stars, the technologies that seemed to ignore physical laws, the alliance of different human populations that had learned to work together instead of fighting each other. "We offer you a choice," Admiral Omina's voice carried to every inhabited world in the galaxy. "Continue to live under a system built on fear and oppression, or join us in building something better." On hundreds of worlds, other species began to rise up against their hegemony overlords. They had always known their rulers were cruel, but they had been too afraid to resist. Now they saw that resistance was possible. High Admiral Thexvar watched his empire crumble in real time. Species after species was declaring independence from hegemony rule. His own officers were beginning to question orders. Even his homeworld was sending messages asking for him to surrender peacefully. "This is Admiral Kang Wu. came a calm voice over all communication channels. "Hi, Admiral Thexvar, you have fought bravely, but this battle is over. Your fleet is surrounded, your government is collapsing, and your people are turning against you. I offer you the same choice we offered everyone else. Surrender now and help us build a better galaxy, or continue fighting a war that will only bring more death." Thexvar looked around his bridge. His officers were waiting for his decision. Outside, human ships surrounded them like stars in the night sky. There were so many that they blocked out the real stars. He had started this battle with 100,000 ships against 500. Now he faced millions of human vessels, and more were appearing every minute. "Signal the fleet," Thexvar said quietly. "Tell all ships to stand down. Tell them the war is over." But as his fleet surrendered, Thexvar realized something that made his blood run cold. This hadn't been a war at all. This had been a demonstration. Humanity had shown the galaxy exactly how powerful they had become, without killing a single enemy soldier. The real question wasn't whether humans could win a war. The question was whether anyone would be foolish enough to start one. The hegemony capital world had never seen anything like it. For 3 days the sky had been filled with human ships. Not attacking, not threatening, just watching, waiting. The massive vessels hung in the atmosphere like silver clouds, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Admiral Kang Wu stood in what used to be the Hegemony Senate building. The alien senators sat quietly in their chairs, no longer the proud rulers of the galaxy. They looked small and frightened, like children who had been caught doing something wrong. "The war crimes trials will begin next week," Kang Wu announced. "Every species that was harmed by hegemony rule will have a chance to speak. Every crime will be investigated. Every victim will be remembered." Senator Vectal raised one of his forearms. "What happens to us? To our people? That depends on you," Kang Wu replied. "Those who cooperate in rebuilding this galaxy will be treated fairly. Those who continue to resist will face justice." Dr. Park Yuna was working with teams from dozens of species to uncover the full truth about hegemony crimes. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. Secret research facilities where alien scientists had been experimenting on other species. Prison planets where entire populations had been enslaved. Weapons designed to destroy planets that asked too many questions. "Admiral," she reported to Kang Wu, "we've found evidence of systematic genocide against at least 12 species. The hegemony wasn't just oppressive, they were actively trying to prevent any other species from becoming advanced enough to challenge them." This explained so much about the galaxy's development over the past 3 centuries. While humans had been growing stronger in exile, everyone else had been held back by design. The hegemony had created a system where only they were allowed to progress. Captain Li Jin was leading humanitarian efforts on the liberated worlds. His scout ships had been converted into supply vessels carrying food, medicine, and technology to species that had been oppressed for generations. "It's amazing," he told his crew as they distributed supplies on a planet that had been used as a slave factory. "These people had the knowledge to build starships centuries ago, but the hegemony forbade them from learning. They've been making simple tools and farming equipment when they could have been exploring the galaxy." The liberated species were eager to learn. They had been hungry for knowledge for so long that they absorbed new information like dry ground absorbing rain. Human teachers found themselves working around the clock, helping entire civilizations catch up on centuries of suppressed development. Admiral Omina was establishing the new government structure. Unlike the old hegemony, this wouldn't be ruled by one species over all others. Every liberated world would have a voice in deciding the galaxy's future. "We call it the Galactic Council," she explained to a gathering of representatives from 50 different species. "Every member species gets equal representation. Decisions are made by discussion and agreement, not by force. But who will enforce the peace?" asked a delegate from a species that looked like walking crystals. "Who will stop wars between different worlds?" Omina smiled. "We will. Humans have learned something important during our exile. The strongest species is the one that protects the weak, not the one that enslaves them." Commander Kim Dae was working on the most challenging project of all, integrating former enemy species into the new defense forces. Many aliens who had served the hegemony were good people, who had simply been following orders. Others were true believers in alien supremacy, who couldn't accept the new reality. "The key is education," Kim Dae explained to his staff. Most of these soldiers have never met a human before. They've been taught lies about us for their entire lives. Once they see the truth, most of them change their minds. The new Galactic Defense Fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships worked alongside alien vessels, sharing technology and tactics. Former enemies became allies as they learned to fight together against the real threats that lurked in the dark spaces between stars. Colonel Yoon Hana was training the new Marines. Her job was to teach soldiers from dozens of different species how to work together as a team. It wasn't easy. Some species breathed different air, some moved differently, some thought in ways that others found confusing. But they learned. They had to. During humanity's exile, they had discovered that the galaxy faced threats much bigger than any war between different species. Things lived in the void between galaxies that made the old hegemony look like children playing with toys. The real enemy isn't each other, Hana told her mixed species training class. The real enemy is out there in the dark, waiting for us to weaken ourselves with stupid wars. Chief Engineer Nam Su was the busiest person in the galaxy. Every species wanted to understand human technology, and every day brought new requests for help with engineering problems that had been impossible to solve under hegemony rule. The secret isn't the technology itself, he explained, to a group of alien engineers. The secret is the way we think about problems. The hegemony taught you that there were rules you couldn't break, limits you couldn't pass. We learned in the void that the only real limits are the ones you accept. He showed them designs for engines that could travel between dimensions, computers that thought faster than light, and weapons that could reshape matter at the atomic level. But more importantly, he taught them the human approach to engineering. If something seemed impossible, that just meant you hadn't tried hard enough yet. On Earth, construction crews were building a new monument. The old memorials to human achievement had been destroyed by the aliens centuries ago. This new one would honor both the dead and the living, the people who had died in the mass graves on human worlds, and the people who had survived in the void to bring justice home. Admiral Kang Wu stood in the half-finished memorial, looking at the names being carved into black stone walls. Millions of names of people who had been murdered simply for being human. But alongside the names of the dead were the names of the living, every human who had survived the exile and returned to reclaim their home. "Sir," came a voice behind him. Captain Changbin approached with a datapad in his hands. "We've received a message from the deep space monitoring stations. Something big is moving toward our galaxy from outside." Kang Wu took the datapad and studied the readings. Whatever was approaching was massive, bigger than any single ship humans had ever built. It was still years away, but it was definitely headed toward civilized space. Could be traders, Changbin suggested. Or explorers from another galaxy? Could be, Kang Wu agreed. But we should be ready in case it's something else. This was why humanity had returned. Not just for revenge or justice, but because the galaxy needed protectors. Real protectors. Not the fake guardians that the hegemony had pretended to be. Dr. Park Yuna joined them at the memorial. "The cultural integration programs are ahead of schedule," she reported. "The different species are learning to work together faster than we expected. I think the shared experience of oppression has made them more willing to cooperate." "Good," Kang Wu said. "They're going to need that unity for what's coming." As if on cue, Engineer Nam Su's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, the new deep space probe is ready for launch. Should we send it toward the approaching object?" "Yes," Kang Wu said. "But include the standard greeting protocol. If whoever is out there is friendly, let's make sure they know we're open to peaceful contact." The probe launched from a human ship in orbit around Earth. As it accelerated toward the edge of the galaxy, it carried a message in every known language. "This is the Galactic Council, representing the free peoples of the Milky Way galaxy. We come in peace, but we stand ready to defend our home. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Commander Kim Dae watched the probe disappear into hyperspace from the bridge of his flagship. "Think they'll be friendly?" he asked. Admiral Kang Wu smiled. "If they are, they'll find allies eager to learn and trade. If they're not," he gestured to the fleet of ships surrounding Earth. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft in perfect coordination, their crews trained and ready for anything. If they're not, they'll discover what the hegemony learned. This galaxy is under new management now. On worlds across the galaxy, people looked up at the stars with hope instead of fear for the first time in centuries. Children played in parks without wondering if their planet would be destroyed for getting too smart. Scientists worked on new discoveries without worrying about being arrested for learning too much. The age of oppression was over. The age of exploration had begun. In his private quarters aboard the Defiant Dawn, Admiral Kang Wu sat down to write the final report of humanity's return. It would be transmitted to every human settlement in the void, letting them know that it was safe to come home. "The exile is over," he wrote. "Justice has been served. The galaxy is free, but our work is not finished. We came back not just to reclaim our place among the stars, but to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. We are the guardians now. We are the protectors of the weak and the defenders of the innocent. We are what we always had the potential to become, forged by adversity into something stronger than we ever imagined possible." He paused, looking out at the stars that had welcomed humanity home.